All right, I think oh wait, wrong controller. Whoopsie. Ah! I'm horrible at this. Is it raining? Is it seriously? I mean, I guess it's always possible it could rain, but it's kind of funny that it's raining when there's all that fire up there, you know? I feel like wouldn't like the fire like evaporate all the rain before it even got down here? I don't know. Just funny to think about. All right, so how we doing? Howdy, Xavier. Let's see what we can get on the crab side of things. Because I'm trying to confirm there are... So we have 2 giant crabs in Wyndham Catacombs. Black Knife has a bunch of the, I guess we'll call them undead crabs for now. There's the one, I think it's just one. Let me double check. No, let's first go this way. Yo, yo, yo. Hey, Johnny. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, so this is normal. Yeah, okay, these are normal crabs. All of them are normal crabs. Okay, cool. That's what I was expecting. Let's check down here. Whew. All right, so... let's go this way. Yes, you got the bot corpses. Yeah, it's up right here. No, it's not. It's not doing it though. Well, I'm not seeing any regular other. Well, I should say small crabs here, not regular. Yeah, it's only here, I guess. It's a pregnant one too. Okay, no, that's not it either. Crabs? Yeah, I want to confirm a few things. Cause I'm finally, because for the sake of the whole orders breaking thesis, I guess we're gonna call it now. For the sake of that analysis, I'm trying to think over, you know, actual cosmological stuff. I know, crazy, but I'm trying to think about, you know, what does it mean for the order to be breaking? What's it mean for the grace to become a curse? And all that stuff. And part of that is that has to factor in the crabs, I'm pretty sure. Like, I'm pretty sure I have to factor the crabs into that for the analysis. The dogs maybe as well, so we'll take a look at them in a sec, but definitely the crabs. And there's only the one and they're pregnant. I watched your streams like 2 years ago. Are you the one who wrote that Dark Souls book? Yes, I am the writer of Abyssal Archive. You can find the link to my website in the description so you can confirm for yourself if I am who you are recalling that I am. Now let's see. I will say it does. The sky looks really pretty with little like I don't know if that's supposed to be smoke or what, but like it just looks really pretty with the little swirls and all that. Okay, moving on from here. Yeah, nothing here. There's normal crabs here. I know that. Check Murkwater Cave just to be real. Looking at Halloween then. Yeah, essentially. That's essentially it. Have to, you know, define it. Yep, 100%, just like I thought. Right? Yeah, okay, it's already done. Okay, thought I recognized that name from the ads. I might pick it up sometime. Oh yeah, sure, if you want. I personally recommend the digital copy, you know, just if you just want to take a peek. I mean, I guess you could always just like read a sample chapter or two, but in terms of like, you know, the sample chapters are picked like from the, like, you know, in the middle of the books and stuff like that. So while I definitely think they're good chapters, I think if you want like the full experience in like, you know, the proper order it's supposed to be read in, I recommend just like buying yourself a digital copy, like what, like $20 off for you to get, and then you can If you want to get like a physical copy, like a soft cover or the hard cover, if you're really feeling generous, you know, you can look into that yourself. You'll do. We're doing them. We gotta get the camera for this one. Yep, same exact thing. Yep. So yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing really. I guess I could try to get one without the torches. The torches are a little annoying for our purposes. Ow. Yeah, just the lighting. This could work. Anyway, back to crabs. I'm trying to think if there's any... Because we have a bunch of small crabs, but they're all like the silver kind, right? Are there any other places that I'm forgetting about with crabs? I know there's the random normal crabs like around here, right? I think these are like the only example of them in the game. Oh, for the DLC, I should clarify. I'm pretty sure it's normal crabs in this area too. I vaguely recall there being crabs down here. Think this is, yeah, this is the way. Oh, okay, I'm calling hacks. There was no way I was in the hitbox there. Foul. Two here. Okay, they're the others. Yeah, these are just the normal crab models, I'm pretty sure, right? Maybe not the red eyes. Maybe I'm crazy. That Miku? Yeah. This is a Miku song. Now let's see. Might switch it up later. Yeah, I don't see any more. It's just the crawling carrion down here, right? Yeah, and these guys, I have to wrap these guys up in what we're talking about too, so. Yeah, so they're going to be talked about. Obviously, we have our corpse there. Hacks, yeah, it's definitely... It was like, I was not even close. Yeah, because these guys, they don't even come out of the ground here, right? Like, they're just walking about. We have normal crabs here. Yeah, now, I'm pretty sure it's just silver crabs in here. I don't think we have any other... Oh, no, we also have the death blight types that are over here on this hill. Wyndham, I think, has it pretty straightforward, right? I'm pretty sure it's just the two big ones. There we go. Yeah, there we go. So there are the bodies here. But this section, which is the locked section... It's just these two. Oh, no, there are some at the far end here. Okay. Interesting. Because in Black Knife Catacombs, they're the crabs. I don't remember if there were any... Maybe there were crawling carrion. But I don't think there were the rotten buns. I don't remember having screenshots of those. The only bits I've heard in regards to cosmology, I recall last protagonist talking about what Rodriguez says in regards to spirits. I might listen to that then, just to see if there's anything I haven't read up on that, because I did actually read recently stuff about Rodrika and stuff when I was curious about the chrysalid thing. But yeah, okay, there's... Yeah, there's giant crabs, but there's no bodies here. And these are the zombie ones, right? Are they pregnant zombies? Not. Nope. So neither of them are pregnant. Can't believe Misaki's so lazy, just made hollows again. No, there's a lot of I had to be very careful with how I was handling this in my head, and I've written down a good chunk of it just that way I don't forget in the future. Yeah, there's absolutely nothing coming up here. We have skeletons, but that's the closest thing we get. I'm not really going to count that, so very different. No flesh, nothing to eat, at least nothing good. There's definitely none on Gelmir. I feel like I'd remember if there was a crab on Gelmir. That seems so out of left field. We're good there. Yeah, so what that tells me then... Yeah, that's telling me that essentially the idea is that the crabs are eating the dead here, and because they've eaten all the dead, none of them will appear as enemies here, and they end up zombified, right? Because the only other example we have is also a crab that's burrowed into a giant corpse pile. As we can see, even more corpses are being added and stuff on top of that, right? Like some of them are still walking about, so they haven't all been eaten, but it's very clear that like this is a huge concentration of regularly crucified bodies, right? I find it funny they even have two extra crucifixes they didn't end up using. They just left them underneath there. That's so funny. But yeah, looking at this, and this would be northeast, right? Yeah, this is northeast of Castle Morn. And that's... Let's see. Huh. Huh. Yeah, there's really only one conclusion I can draw from that then, is that Castle Morn is crucifying a bunch, right? A bunch of them get gathered up and crucified here to make a statement, perhaps. I don't know if it has anything to do with the shipwrecks we have, you know, here. So we have a few... I don't think they're... I don't remember them being out back for sure, but I do recall there being some who are crucified, yeah, here on the beach, right? So you have some that got crucified here. There we go. She's alive, but she's in the hospital. Wait, what happened, Nick? Who's in the hospital? Is this a top chat thing again? One second, I have to fix this. Bottom line is I'm cursed. Well, I'm sorry to hear that you're cursed, Nick, but I have no idea what you're cursed for. I don't know who's in the hospital, but I'll pray for him. Yeah, I can't. This is why we have the camera. Yeah, nothing crazy about the body beyond that. And I'm pretty sure there should be crabs over here, but they're just the normal type, right? So I don't think there's even any big crabs in this area. Yeah, pretty sure it's just the normal type and they're the small. There may be some over here. I'm not remembering. But I really don't remember. Yeah, there we go. Like, weren't there some crabs over on this side? Yeah, there are. But yeah, they're also the normal type. I guess I should check now. Pregnant? Pregnant? Preggers? You preggers? Nope. Nope, nope, nope. There we go. Yeah, sorry, Nick. I don't know if you sent other messages or that was just you memeing or something. But I didn't get it, unfortunately. So I don't know if YouTube ate it or what, but... Sorry to say. Now let's see. Boop-a-doo. Gate front. There's no crabs here. I think there's just octopuses up here. I remember when we were checking around. There's the Deathblight ones here. There's none down here. I'm pretty sure there's none in Shaded Castle. I feel like I would remember if there were crabs in Shaded Castle. There are slugs in Shaded Castle, or I think out front of Shaded Castle. Let's double check here. Yeah, there's slugs here. I'll resend the first message because YouTube doesn't work. No problem. Yeah, sucks when technology fails you, you know? Anywho, that covers that. All right, unless there's like an area I'm really forgetting, I think that's it for the crabs. Like, I don't think there are any crabs in the catacombs up north. There's definitely not this cave. We have the silver ones along the river, but that's not too weird. We have the prawn. You know, now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure there are none down here. What's that, Xavier? You just taste something delicious, or? Oh, never mind. YouTube deleted that. Don't know what that's about. Huh. Yeah, there are bodies here, but there are no crabs, just crustaceans. Just the prawn. You know what they should have added in Elden Ring? They should have had a prawn and a crab fighting each other. That would have been funny. Just like come across like just two annoying giants of the lake world battling out for supremacy. They could do that with like a room bear and like one of those stupid crows too. I would pay to see a crow fuck up one of those room bears. Heart of Aeonia, no. We found the few. I don't think there's any down here. Either way, the fact that they're not showing the crabs in the rot with like a unique rot texture, I think is notable. The phone was just in your pocket. Oh, that's so funny because it was like perfect. I was like, oh, he's going, Oh, that was too perfect. Oh God. Wait. It is kind of funny that this area has, like, you know, quote unquote trees in here. Xavier had a Homer moment. Big crab. Oh, right. That it's very short because it's the illusory wall stuff. That's why. Wait. Huh? Are there other catacombs that do this? I don't recall them that have holes. That's interesting. Also interesting there's Death Root here. I don't remember this. Yeah, because this area doesn't have any Death Root on the walls or anything. I don't remember that being particularly common. Yeah, I may be just like a little nutso. So apologies. There we go. Pickle pea that's a completely separate bird that I would like to see screwed up. F up the bird. Only one snugly allowed in these parts. Bring me back my hawk girl. Yeah, nothing over here. All right, I think that's it for crabs then. Like there's zero chance. Zero chance I missed any, right? So if that's the totality of the crabs, and I have them all properly documented, then I think what that tells me is that the hollows get eaten, and as a result, the crabs are the curse, I guess I should say, gets passed on to the crabs. Now, I do think it's a little weird that we have completely ordinary crabs in areas where they do keep it. Like, it's an interesting choice to like have them be normal crabs. Like they're giant crabs, so they've been there a long time. I guess the idea is just supposed to be that, you know, they haven't eaten them that significantly or anything. That, or I guess maybe the crabs have been there since long before they rose from the dead. Did that message fail again? Yeah, I'm sorry, Nick. It's not showing up for me in my chat. Might have to do with sensitive subject matter. Yeah, if that's the case, Nick, then yeah, I think YouTube might just be preemptively removing it or whatever. But whatever is happening with you, just know that, you know, I'll pray for whoever's in the hospital. Okay, so. Yeah, so as I was saying, the same might be true for dogs. It's a little harder, I think, to tell though, because let's do it from here. The dogs we have, at least the stray dogs, I can justify their appearance for the most part. Like, they're not that weird. Like, it's like, yeah, if there's a stray and he's starving, I wouldn't be surprised if he looked like this. The only problem I think I would maybe have is that this looks a little too bony, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, this just looks like an exposed rib cage at this point. So again, maybe that's the idea. There we go. So that might be the hint, as it were. Mm-hmm. Boys, my doctors keep dying. Oh my. You gotta find younger doctors, apparently. I'm sorry to hear that, you know? Maybe it's for the best. You don't want, you know... You don't want the dead, you know, or the ones on death's door to be informing you about their health, necessarily. I guess we'll go here. No, we... There we go. Let's do this. Because I don't want to... I just don't... I don't want to deal with going back all the way up and stuff like that, so I think this would be faster. Yeah, Ed. Where can we find... Are there anywhere where there are normal dogs? Oh, this one I don't remember that well. Yeah, wow. I think by Dragonburnt Ruins. I think there are normal dogs there. Anyway, whichever doctor's in the hospital, I'll keep her in my prayers. Really sucks to hear, though, that, you know, obviously there's the loss of life. But without knowing the circumstances, I can't say, you know, but it's like, well, they had a good life, or they had a long going, or it was gonna happen eventually or not, you know. So I'm gonna focus on the part where, you know, I can imagine how annoying it could get having to keep on trying to find someone new after you just lost an old person, especially if they're people you really like, you know? It's like, damn. Bro, 2 of them were in their 40s. Oh, wow. That's wild. Crab eggs. Again, I'm not too surprised because the crabs are right over there and over there, I'm pretty sure. Like, is there one, like, down there? But, like, it's just funny. Might as well look at you too. Is there anything really special about you? Spine looks pretty exposed. Yeah. Okay. It's more obvious here now because like it's not like it doesn't look like it's blending in with the colors of the body so much. It's like, yeah, okay, this isn't like skin. This is like supposed to be a totally exposed rib cage. Okay. There we go. There we go. The Beastmen and their dogs look pretty bad too. That's true. I may have to factor that into consideration. It could just be a style thing then. Actually, though, now that I think about it, isn't the idea supposed to be that the Beastmen and the dogs are also eating people? Right? Like, there's a lot of, like, people and stuff. Like, we see them, like, feasting on, like, remains and stuff in some cases. If that's the case, then maybe it's not that unusual. we go. What was that about grace becoming a curse? Okay, so it's the two fingers obviously spoken through via Enya, but it's the two fingers basically declaring how actually let me bring up the exact line, because this is actually, I think I found because when I was looking at this line again, I'm like, oh, this is actually very interesting, because I didn't pick up on this originally when I first translated it, or at least if I did, I don't remember. It definitely didn't stick in my brain. Let's see, where is it? Here we go. So the full quote is: "The Great Elden Ring, the Golden Regulation." Now again, regulations by translation of order. "It regulates the world, and that's why. And life glorifies the grace and good fortune." Right. So it talks about how it's like, okay, the gold brings order. That order brings a grace and good fortune, which life could glorify. Right. So it brings that grace and good fortune to life. Right. That is the message getting across. Now the relevant part, "But it was broken. The breaking of the regulation is an unforgivably grave error that brings just deserts." You could also translate as like comeuppance, retribution, that type, payback, that type of thing, right? But that's the idea. So the idea is like, okay, they broke the order, and breaking the order, which is this horrible, like this error, this mistake, this blunder, that comes with some major consequences. And now this is the backlash. Now, the context seems to be the idea of like, yes, Marika is the one who committed the sin, but because she is, I guess, quote unquote, human, or she's part of that human sphere. Everyone is suffering the what's the word? The punishment for this, in a sense, right? They don't really phrase it exactly that, right? Like Marika gets the punishment for her sin, but like this is how like the two finger seems to kind of be phrasing this is like this is what we get for allowing the ring to be broken, right? So now the world, life is hopelessly broken. Curses and misfortune run rampant. So there's this contrast between, oh, we had the blessing and good fortune, the grace, right? So you had the blessings and good fortune, but now you have curses and misfortune, right? So the idea seems to be that's flipped on its head now. But then there's the idea, the greater will has not abandoned the world and life. For you, Tarnish, were born the guidance of grace and were brought the guidance of grace and given a mission. Tarnish, the great rune you possess, blah, blah, all that stuff there. So the whole point is like, it's the greater will is, not giving up on this world despite all this horrible stuff that's now happening because of our the terrible deeds that one among us have done. We are going to, we're going to try to identify now, okay, how does the blessing become a curse? And this seems to be the idea, is that because the order is broken, as a consequence now, the blessing of life has been essentially kind of twisted, or it's no longer functioning properly, It's like if you busted a toy, the toy might still talk when you turn it on or whatever, but like the words are like it's skipping every other word and it's kind of coming in or out, right? Like it's like, it's a little wonky. And I think that seems to be the idea here, is that because the order is shattered, and the ring is shattered, and thereby the order, it has become fractured in a sense where it's still doing what it's supposed to be doing, at least in theory, but it's not doing it entirely properly. And that seems to be the idea of where the hollows come from. As far as I can tell, the idea seems to be is that, again, because remember the term for hollow is like moja, so the idea is supposed to be the dead, right? But they're not really treated or considered the dead. They're still talked about, and they act as if they are the living. I think the localization has a good idea where in one case they translate it as like the undead or something. I think it's for the nobles or what have you. I think that's a good way to put it. Anyway, Vile Blood. Hey, longtime lurker. Oh, really? I feel like I've seen the name before, but maybe it's just the avatar. Quick question. I have both of your books, and I'm wondering if there are any articles on your site for either game that didn't make it into the books. Any thoughts or articles for either game that have come after the books were published, or all relevant information is in there? Barring any like typos or corrections that I would want to be made to a future edition of the books, no. Everything inside Abyssal Archive and Demonic Archive would essentially be anything in my website plus more. So like for the case of Abyssal Archive, I do have some of my old Reddit posts reposted as decodings, and I've updated them a little since the Reddit days as well, right? But anything that you would read there would already be in my book, and I would argue be even better because you're getting the additional analysis that the decodings didn't really have, right? Like, I kept myself very limited with regards to how I handled my original Dark Souls 1 content. And by contrast, my Demon Soul stuff is essentially just the content from the website that has been gone through an editor and all that stuff and put in there. There are a few things I would have liked to have included, but it has nothing to do with like content wise for it. You're essentially getting the same analysis. And again, like I said, if there are any differences between what I have on the website versus what I have in the book, it would probably be the case of, oh, there was a typo here or whatever that we didn't catch or whatever in the translation. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to fix it for the website, or there's a data point that, you know, in a future edition of the book or a edition that already exists for the book, it's been corrected or added or whatever. And, you know, the website has been, obviously the website's more readily available, so it's updated, but like that edition of the book may not be, you know, for sale yet because it hasn't gone to print, or, you know, yada, yada. Basically, you shouldn't expect any major discrepancies. Again, like I said, unless there's like some horribly terrible typo that I ever make that I'm like, oh no. The version you have should more or less be up to date and consistent with everything that I've ever published on the website and said publicly. It's become twisted, like the Rune of Death Shards became Deathblight. Yeah, that seems to be the idea. Is that similar to how essentially there's a curse with Godwyn and stuff like that that becomes the Death Root? That seems to be the idea that we have here, where our enemies, our hollows, right, our Moja, they are still living people, but because they have life that won't die, it seems to be very similar to undead in Dark Souls, where if they do die, they come back, right? And I don't know if that's supposed to be the soft lore justification for enemies respawning or not. Again, there's always like, you can always make an argument that there's some loose connection there. But the point I'm trying to make is that there seems to be this idea that even death is not necessarily the end for those who are living right now. Again, I don't know if this was always the case, because that's always been kind of vague and weird about how Erdtree burial and stuff was handled. So I'm not going to be like very definitive, but it definitely seems to be the case now where there's a little too much life. And the body over time, even if you don't die at all, it seems to be your body still might be decaying instead, right? It's not looking too hot, looking a little zombified. And obviously, I think death would accelerate this, but what's most important is that death seems to accelerate mental degradation. We see that with Patches' guys, where for some reason, everyone we're able to communicate with in Lands Between, but Patches allegedly can't understand a word of what the hollow enemies we encounter are saying, right? Like, he just works off vibes. So with all of that stated, it seems to be the idea is that, yes, we still have a case where there is physical degradation and there is mental degradation. It doesn't seem to require you to die. It seems to be just living can cause at least the physical stuff. But dying, which seems to be the idea with the Highwaymen, because, again, you may recall, we have this valley, which is full of bodies that have been seemingly dumped by Godrick's forces. And Patches makes an allusion to the idea being these are remnants of Godrick's defeated army who got overworked, essentially, and then ended up being abandoned, thrown away, discarded like trash. So the idea seems to be that all these here are those trash that were discarded after being essentially overtaxed by their superiors. So it's you see the idea is that they got quote unquote killed, thrown down here. These guys are still alive. They end up taking shelter in this cave, right? And they end up, because, well, obviously they've essentially been abandoned by their army or whatever, they just turn to highway robbery instead. And then Patches comes in and basically guess with them. But the only reason I can think of for why they are so unintelligible, apparently, is that they died, and that causes an acceleration in their mental degradation and stuff compared to others. Great, thanks for the response. I was just wondering before I start in, keep up the great work. Look forward to anything you do in the future. Well, thank you so much, Vileblood. Again, I hope you really like the content and stuff, right? Like, again, I recommend starting with Abyssal Archive personally. just because there's no prologue or epilogue for Demonic Archive. I would have really liked to include that, but that just didn't work out with the publishing schedule and stuff like that we had. And that's where like all the methodology and stuff gets talked about. And it's basically consistent for Demon Souls as well as Dark Souls. So if you're interested in that type of stuff, I do recommend reading the prologue of Abyssal Archive first. Or at the very least, I recommend reading the prologue of Abyssal Archive, and then you can jump into Demonic Archive if you want to do it in like, you know, the release of game order. But yeah, the Dark Souls stuff should be complete for you. You don't have to worry about any supplementary material with me. Same with Demon Souls. And then you can, I mean, yeah, that's it. My publisher has mentioned, guys, that they've also been receiving lots of requests about futures and sequels and stuff, so they get the same stuff that you guys give me. Bloodborne, Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Elden Ring. When? Also, look, have you seen the moveset comparisons between Gale and the Dreglord? No, I have not, but like, I don't need to see the comparisons. I fought the boss. I know. I fought that boss. I'm like, oh, this looks familiar. Hey, Gale. Just some bugs in the order. Yeah, essentially. If we were to analogize it to a computer code, this would essentially be like a bug now. Someone accidentally poured some water on the memory card, and now everything's looking a little bit on the fritz when we try to plug it in. But that seems to be the idea, is that essentially the life and vigor and immortality and crap that the Lands Between has enjoyed has now turned into this horrible curse. Because it was, you know, the wonderful blessing of grace. Now, it's interesting how this doesn't affect the Tarnished at all, obviously, right? Like, they have true blue immortality, it seems, which is another interesting thing, right? It's like, this isn't like those who live in death. Those are the people who have 100%, they have definitely died. And now they have, thanks to contact with Deathroot, returned not as themselves, but as these soulless new entities of their old forms, right? Basically, from what we see, from what I understand from Spirit Ashes and stuff, they're essentially new spirits with perhaps the bodies and to some extent memories of their old lives, which is very interesting to think about, right? Like with Ensha and stuff like that. Like, Ensha may adopt the name and may even have memories of Ensha from life, but is fundamentally not that Ensha. It's essentially a different person. Very interesting to think about. Just need a cosmic IT person. That's what we're here for, as Elden Lord. Duh. Alrighty. Anyway, so what was I at that? Oh yeah, okay. So the point being is that it seems that the rotten hollows as well, quote unquote, are also the same like that, where they are people who've already died, they haven't fully decayed and become skelly bros or anything like that, or been returned to the Erd Tree yet or something. And they're disturbed by by what we see with like flooding water and stuff like that. That seems to rile them up. We see even those who come up on shore seem to suffer this. Now I find this interesting because I don't know if this is the idea that, oh, some people who are brought in here who aren't like us tarnished also become wrapped up in this, or if the idea is supposed to be these are like natives and maybe they were trying to sail away but then they failed and end up washing back ashore, you know, with the shipwreck. Interesting to think about. Well, the Tarnished don't have grace. They have the guidance of grace, which I guess is the greater will. Yeah, that's true. It's not necessarily grace returning to their eyes, right? But still, we use runes. We infuse runes into us. We filter them into our bodies and things. So I wouldn't say it's too different either. But yes, you're right. Technically speaking, it is the guidance of grace we have, not necessarily grace itself. Even though we technically drink liquid grace. Technically, we're just imbibing lots of grace, though. If the idea ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, again, it's not that it's a don't broke, don't fix it. It's that I have to be very careful with how I do this, because it'd be very easy for me to be like, oh, it's just like Dark Souls, or it's just like Demon Souls, right? There are a lot of similarities, but they're also just like major cosmological difference in how this functions. Similar to how the soul-starved hollows in Demon Souls are very different from the soul-starved hollows in Dark Souls. Like, there's very different underpinnings to how this works. And I have to be very careful and cautious on how, like, what is exactly the same as the original? What is different? How does that affect things in the larger scale? Like, that's the thing where, like, I don't want to fall into the trap where it's just like, oh, I've done this before, right? It's very important that I either actually understand what Elden Ring's doing, not just try to, you know, crib off my knowledge of past games, which could end up screwing me over because I'm like, oh yeah, it's just like this game. It's like, oh no, there's actually a little foible in your rules logic that you didn't know about. Oh. Huh. There's one over here, and I think it's the only one too. Yeah, huh. That's funny. Is this one of my... No. I think it was the Nomad who had this, actually. Yeah, I mean, respawning enemies don't really need a lore justification, right? Really, you know, like enemies respawn, no one would care. That's why I say it's a soft lore thing, because there are plenty of enemies who are like not undead or have any connection, and they respawn just fine, right? Like anyone who like looks too deep at the respawning stuff, it's one of the, it's kind of like the fog in Demon Souls and stuff like that, where like it was something that like made sense in the context of Demon Souls, but then you're like in Dark Souls, you're like, well, vaguely there's this idea of fog. It has some of the same principles here, but why are there fog walls around there? Like you don't think too hard about it. Like it's a gameplay mechanic first and foremost. I find the same thing with the enemy respawning. It's like, well, why do enemies respawn? Well, you know, there's this idea of the undead, and you know, the undead, you know, that when they die, they're not necessarily always dead, right? So like when you rest and stuff like that, you know, you can imagine time's passing and then they come back or something like that, right? Like, but it's like, okay, for every enemy in every situation or whatever, it's like, no. This is like a broad idea. I'm fond of the idea lands between our figurative and somewhat literal middle ground between life and death. I can see figurative. I'm not sure about literal. If only because, like, personally, I see it more like the lands between seems to be inspired by Avalon, right? Like, it seems to be the idea of being like that mythical land of King Arthur, right? So I feel like that's probably, like, if Leyndell is supposed to be Camelot, then like the lands between as a whole would definitely be the Avalon. Like that large, you know, this island through the fog that exists in kind of like this fairy dimension type of thing. It's not really our world. It's not really not our world. That seems to be more like what the parallel they're drawing on. I do think there is definitely this idea of like life and death, like obviously taking center stage in this game, but I just don't know how much it's really connected. In terms of being like, oh no, this is basically the actual world of the dead. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's not like every dead person ends up here in the lands between. At least they don't try to go out of their way to kind of indicate that with what we get. I guess the closest you could maybe make an argument is like Limgrave, because like get it, like people come ashore and then they bury, but like it's a bit different from what we get like from like, you know, oh wait, I don't have the area, you know, with the Realm of Shadow and stuff. So either way, point is, there's a lot of weirdness, and we have to include the Rotten Hollow bodies as well as the Crawling Carrion. Now, the Crawling Carrion is easy enough to, it's like, oh, it's that same thing, but it's the flesh. So like, it doesn't necessarily, it means that, you know, the life stuff doesn't only apply to the whole body. Even if you cut yourself to pieces, you could end up still, at least in some form, surviving, which I don't know if you can necessarily call this thing conscious or anything, but you know, like let's presume like your brain or your head was in this mass. I think there'd be kind of an existential horror to think that you've become this horrifying abomination, right? But like either way, it seems to more or less be like kind of just like a bunch of flesh that amass together and become this horrifying thing, and then you get maggots and birds and dogs or whatever tries to eat it up, and then you kind of absorb it in you and stuff like that, like that type of thing. There's at least one directly stated realm of death. There's at least a spirit realm. I don't remember if there's anything where it's like, oh yeah, this is the world or the land of the dead or something. There might be something like that for the what is it, the Tibia stuff that I'm not remembering. Didn't see you there, buddy. Yeah, so whenever these guys are outside, we find these versions of them typically. Obviously, we found the rot versions inside the catacombs. We also see other catacombs ones which do something similar, where it's like it's not really you know, it's you know, it's the crawling carrion, and it's got like maggots, I think, still, but it doesn't really have any of the other stuff. All right. I think we want to go back to Sorcerer now. Oh, Helf. Yeah, that's true. The Helfin. The Helfin's got a lot of the stuff connected. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so America broke the Elden Ring. There have to be some consequences, and as far as I can tell, I think the Hollows are the consequences. I think you could make arguments maybe that there's always been, there may have always been limits to immortality and stuff. But I definitely think, at least in its current manifestation, it definitely seems to be a direct result of the order breaking. So to what extent this is just like, oh no, this has always been part of the order. It seems to be that the consequences, like the bad side, are a lot worse now than before. Let's see, gate front here. Oh, I didn't know about the gem thing, Xavier. That's cool. Yeah, and everything here. Yeah, let's try to get the shot here. Let's get a shot here. I'm glad the crabs thing was very straightforward, you know? Huh, it doesn't look like it's sticking out here. That's interesting. Still out at the shot. Just so I can confirm we got some. There we go. There we go. I like this. Just to highlight. Maybe I have to look up some dog anatomy stuff just so I can get a better idea of how the designer was portraying this. Might help me highlight some of my points. Yeah, maybe it's not exposed. Maybe it's not exposed spine on the noble dogs. All right. So yeah, it looks like the idea would probably be that crabs and dogs are regularly feasting, and you know, you are what you eat. Same thing in other From Software games, and as a result, the dogs and the crabs are becoming zombified themselves because they're essentially eating the curse, right? Which we don't see with other animals, which again, as far as I can tell, it looks like most animals aren't subjected to this blessing curse shtick. It seems to be mainly limited to people. Now, again, you could argue that's because it's supposed to extend the blessing only to people, and so the blessing is still being extended specifically to people. Interesting that that could be selective, as it were, if so. But as a result, they're now taking on the curse with it. I don't know. It still looks a lot more exposed, but it's really hard because the texture is so muddy, you know. I'm gonna take one more shot here just to have it. Check if the dog's eyes are glassy and dead too. I mean, these dogs just have eyes. I don't think there's anything particularly noteworthy about them. They're not like holes or kind of like what we get with the nobles or anything. Now the regular dogs over here eat the eyeballs and getting that glitchy grace, yeah. Give me some of that gold in the eye. Yum, yum, yum. Oh, man, I'm tripping. These, I think, just have white eyes, right? Just really bright white eyes. Yeah, it's similar to the other dogs. I think they share the same base model, so... Yep. Yeah, I don't know about the Wraith Callers and stuff, because the Wraith Callers seem to be their own thing, and I don't want to, like, accuse... I want to accuse, like, the horses being related to that in any way. Because that could just be a separate thing where, like, I don't know, they're reanimating the dead with spirits or something like that. Like, they're putting up... They pack a bunch of the spirits they summon inside a horse corpse or something. Like, that could be something completely different for all I know. If I recall correctly, in fact... Yeah, there's a lot more rot to the body here. Yeah, the bone and stuff exposed to a greater degree. Well, grace comes from order, and we have to add a new rune to extend grace to the undead. Well, what we're extending grace to is specifically those who live in death, which is different, right? Like, I feel like for my analysis, maybe for just the Godwin stuff, but I feel like I'm going to be commonly calling them the living dead in the future, because similar to what I do with Dark Souls, where it's very important to distinguish there's the undead and then there's the dead, right? And they're very different things. And these living dead, they definitely seem to be like they're all tied up with Deathroot and all that stuff. And then like the dead in general seems to be more so connected to what's it called? You know, like spirits and ghosts and stuff that happens after death and all that stuff. And that seems to be like a wide umbrella term for a bunch of different things, which include those who live in death. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. I just want to clarify again, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Yeah, the horses are definitely supposed to be corpses. Like, I don't think there's any life left in that corpse when it's just hanging its head down there like that. So, looking at what we got here. Yeah, the Elden Ring is definitely being used in order to... What's the word? It's being used essentially to reshape order as we see fit. And because of that, we're able to essentially incorporate those who live in death using the special new rune mark of death, because the old rune obviously never accounted for that because there were no those who live in death, as far as we know. As a result, now that they exist or whatever, we're now creating a new rune which will account for them, and they will be part of whatever the order we create there, like the Duskborn or whatever. No, that's the point I'm trying to make, Night Scout, is that the rotten bodies, those are quote-unquote hollows. Those are technically, you know, they're different from a lot of the other things that we've talked about. So that's why I'm saying that it's a bit different. It's not, there's a difference between Moja and Shisha, right? Those are both terms that can translate as the dead, but they're very different, much like how they're very different in Dark Souls. It's very clear that From Software and Miyazaki are using them very differently in this. There is some overlap, at least, because Moja, at the very least, normally are supposed to, because again, you have to understand, like, the Buddhist connotation of Moja is supposed to be kind of like they would imagine it more as the dead, referring to those who have not yet reached nirvana, right? So like it'd be like the spirit of the deceased, and the spirit has strayed off the path to enlightenment, right? To nirvana and all that stuff. And as a result, they are still, you know, existing wandering on this earth, right? Like that's typically the general concept of like Moja when you're talking strictly within the Buddhist religious context. More broadly, it's, you know, it's the best I could describe it is like, it's like when you say, you know, oh yeah, he's dead versus he's passed away, right? Like that's something the kanji kind of gives away, right? I actually like the translation of hollow because the kanji looks like an empty vessel, right? So it kind of gives this idea of like there being an absence or a void in something. So like the idea of being like hollow is like, again, I just think it was very inspired localization choice. Anyway, but the point is that with in the context of Elden Ring, there definitely seems to be a similar idea because like the imp heads, the one you collect in Langdell from that one corpse in the back alley, that's supposed to be like a quote unquote corpse. But again, much like the Rodin quote unquote corpses, those are actually supposed to be Moja or, you know, bodies or whatever. So there's this idea that the dead are supposed to be a thing that you would inter here, there. And obviously the idea would be that these would be the dead who would be brought in so that way they can go to the equivalent of Nirvana in Elden Ring, which would be the Erd Tree, right? Like the idea that the Erd Tree is this, you know, golden rapture that everything will come to, right? And it sort of becomes twisted because it's like, you know, now you have these things which won't ever truly die. And so are they ever going to make it to the Erd Tree Nirvana, quote unquote, right? So, which is of course doubly complicated by, you know, the whole death root thing. So, you know, puns all around. The big thing for me then would be, what are we going to do about, how do I put this? Like, what are we going to do about talking about the curses and stuff insofar as, like, I think I have to make it its own separate section because it has to be under Marika's breaking. Orders breaking, right? Like, how I'm going to set this up is I'm going to talk about Godwyn, the Prince of Death stuff. Maybe some of the stuff on Fia, but definitely not holistically because I would want Fia to be her own thing. So there may be some talk about the Cult of Death thing in broader terms. And the big thing for me would probably be like just discussing like how everyone treats those who live in death and the effects and stuff and the fundamentalism behavior and all that. Like all that I think would be covered. And then there would be talk about orders breaking and Marika actually breaking the order. Cause I feel like it's better I think if we go Night of the Black Knives, Godwyn's death stuff, Marika breaking the Elden Ring, shattering and all the demigods and stuff involved in that. I think that's the better way to order it. So I feel like we have to include all the stuff on the breaking of the order then after talking about those who live in death and stuff like that. So I have to double check and make sure that nothing I'm gonna discuss there is gonna end up overlapping or cause problems and stuff, because I do reference the Rodin bodies a bit, but I feel like those hollows I talk about them in a way in which I kind of like those who live in death with the skeletons. I think I talk about them in a way in which it doesn't invite too many questions to be answered immediately. It's kind of like, oh yeah, there are skeletons. Oh yeah, there's these bodies here, right? Like, and then I can talk about why they're walking or meandering about and, you know, not being dead, you know? So that's going to be its own thing. Those who live in death seem hostile to what they consider not living dead, though. I mean, isn't that how it works with people too? They're tribalistic. Like you have to think of those who live in death as their own race, nation, tribe. And yeah, if they're considering that they are, you know, what's the word? Insular in a way, right? Yeah, I'm not surprised by the hostility. This is just the fact that, you know, in many cases we find them being like, I'm pretty sure the ones that we see over here in Black Knife Catacombs, they're being controlled in their case because, you know, they got the weird, like, necromancy stuff going on there. Hollow head increases faith, if I recall. Yes, it does. So it's very clearly supposed to be depicting the faithful who would be buried in Erd Tree burial. You know, like who else is the imp statue supposed to be depicting if it's not supposed to be, you know, one of the faithful who would be receive an Erd Tree burial, right? So they're supposed to be those spirits of the dead. Like it's supposed to represent one of those of the dead that are supposed to be heading for enlightenment. But obviously that's not happening in the current fracture of the order. And as I was I didn't show this when I went over there earlier, unfortunately, but like when we went over here at Dragonburnt Ruins, the whole point with the nobles is that they're trying to get Agiel to burn them up, right? Specifically, the Japanese use a term that essentially means to like burn, like it basically means like total immolation, right? Like you're burning up, you reduce to ashes, burn to ashes, burnt completely. Like there's this idea that like, you know, you are going to burn until there's nothing left, essentially, right? So there's very clearly this idea that they want Agiel to essentially like give them like a total cremation, you know, quickly, instantly, one and done. And it's very obvious why they want to do that, because if we see stuff with the crawling carrion as any example, other methods, even if they go to extremes, may just end up turning you into a greater existential horror. So like just, you know, just skip the flesh stuff, go straight to the incinerated to ash phase, you know? And clearly, apparently, they want to make it as painless as possible. So I imagine having Agiel, you know, burn them to toast, you know, instantly would probably be like the best option. Like that's the way that you can most effectively, you know, ensure you're not coming back while also making it the least painful for you, or at least that's the best I can gather on what their rationale is. And then, like I said, we have the mental degeneration to consider too. So every failure to properly, quote unquote, properly die risks essentially you becoming a threat to everyone around you, and just generally, you know, I can imagine if I was in that situation, I would also not want to go through the existential horror of having myself slowly lose my mind as I'm trying to kill myself, and then just becoming like a stark raving madman that's gonna attack other people potentially. They want to bootleg Destined Death or Frenzy Flame. Yeah, essentially. Dreglord is the Lord of Hollows, confirmed. You know, when you think about it, he's basically just a giant crawling carrion, you know? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Our good he is indeed the Lord of the Dregs. Trying to think if there's another one in Catacombs or something. I think Black Knife, right? Behold, chat. Come on. Yeah, it's gonna take me a while. Okay, hold on that behold. There we go. No, I need to. There we go. Behold, chat. Oh no, it's only crabs in here. Ah! It's the other one, damn it. I ruined it. Ruined. Go in here then. This one is outside, so I think this should be also feathers and stuff, right? Yeah, I was right. It's always the outside ones. What's on here? No, it's over here. There you guys are. But behold, your subjects, Dreglord. No, yeah, I know about the necromancy stuff. But I'm talking about Black Knife Catacombs was the one I was talking about. You have that here. Yes, overall, I think I've got it all cleared up then. I'm pretty sure the crabs are supposed to tie into that. And I think we can even say the same thing for the dogs based on how they're depicted. It's very much like Dark Souls 3's dogs. So I don't think it's just an artistic thing. Well, that looks intimidating. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I wanted to cover. Can't think of anything like particularly relevant to this stuff. I mean, we should, or at least already have shots of any like characters who are like quote unquote hollows, but they show at least some degree of like sentience and stuff. like these guys, for example, right? Like the way they're standing guard and resting and things like this, you can argue, are these guys supposed to be mindless madmen? I don't know. It could be this idea of like, you know, these guys are just following like quote unquote instinct or whatever. There's not actually a real thought going through their brain, but I'm willing to be open-ended on this, much like with Hollows from DS. And then I guess my only question would be what is causing the bodies to rise in Raya Lucaria, but I'll be honest, I could easily see it based on the fact that like they're so focused on, you know, focus and stuff. The idea is supposed to just be like, oh, these are scholars and like they're so obsessed with there we go. They're so obsessed with knowledge and, you know, all that stuff that, you know, they're rising from the grave just because they're like, no, I need to know more, right? And they're like mentally, you know, a little mentally degenerated here. Uh-huh. Don't some item descriptions say that virtually everyone is insane by now? I don't recall any that say that. But it's possible because there are so few descriptions that talk about the world state in those terms. I wouldn't be surprised if it slipped by me, but as far as I know, there's talk about the Hollows, you know, kind of wandering around as they are. I don't think there's necessarily talk about everyone being mad though. Yeah, the thing is, Night Scout, though, we see Glintstone on the body and stuff, though. So if the idea is like they have lots of Glintstone inside them, I would expect I expect it to be kind of like the Rot, where we see like growths and things there. I think this is just supposed to be an indicator for players so they know that there's the whole focus mechanic with these. Kind of like how you have the poison ones and they have like the quote-unquote poison effect on them, even though they're not actually, you know, poisoned in a meaningful case. They just spread poison. I think it's the same idea. That I give me knowledge. Anyway, so we have the idea that even those who at least were for a time dead, because they still have, you know, residual life, even they're able to rise from the grave under certain circumstances, which again was also true to some extent for undead in Dark Souls, though again it was a little bit rarer for varying reasons. Well, these guys, they rose up. And we see the same thing with catacombs, typically in areas with like flooded catacombs, you know, there's flooded chambers and that gets them, like in Langdale's catacombs, it's obviously the flooded sewage stuff, which, you know what, if I suddenly had sewage, you know, you know, flooding my bed, I too would want to wake up and get out of there. Or like just with like what we see with the crab area stuff where it's like, you know, this seems to just be a sewer area, which I'm like, hey, bro, why'd you bury me here in the first place? Like, hey, where's that Erd Tree root? And then the final, I think the final case would probably be something like Shaded Castle. But again, that's kind of like, that's more so like there's all that poison. And so like, yeah, if I was a dead body in there, I too might want to get out. The Commoner's headband says only there are no commoners remaining with their wits about them. I'll have to double check that then, Night Scout, just to be doubly sure then, because I wasn't sure if commoners counted as hollows either, but that'd be good to know. Because at the very least, I'm pretty sure what's his face looks the same, but he's definitely at least still what's the word? He can still speak to us. He's not totally crazy, right? Oh no, where is he? Where's good old Gustok? The Giants, I would not. The Giants, I don't think. The Giants, at least from what I've seen, that's from what I at least I recall. Maybe I'm misremembering, but from what I recall, it does not talk about them losing their minds. It's more so that they've gotten stupider over the generations. Did I kill him? I think I killed him. We killed our certified Godric Stamper. Also, it's funny, they actually used one of the commoner faces, right, as a base. They just slapped on Godric's hair and his crown. Funny to think about. Hello there, Mr. Troll. Are you suffering from any mental degeneration? Have you called your local EG hotline to make sure that you are still keeping sharp as ever? Yeah, so I think that covers basically everything that I wanted. We got the crabs covered, got hollows covered for the most part. Unless there's like a really unique circumstance with them that I'm not remembering. Obviously we have the ones up here with Dominula, over here with Kaled, one of them's the spirit that speaks, the ones all the way around there. The blood's so diluted, he's just basically a commoner. Now that's just mean. Why you doing my man Godric dirty? Nothing there. Nothing really there. Over the second, let's take a look at let's at least take a look at the beastmen just so I can have a comparison to the dogs. Well, these guys definitely have a little bit more belly. They don't got their rib cage sticking out quite yet. Definitely a bit of a bony back, though. So maybe you shouldn't mention the back at all. I don't think the spine is a good indicator here. It's hard to tell with the face, you know? Whether that's supposed to be, that's just how they look or not. Yeah, they're dogs. They're dogs for sure. No, that's not the way. I guess where there were dogs in the convoy here. I guess not. Are they over here? Also, I do find it funny to think that all the seeds that got released, you just got Farm Azula floating around here, all the tornadoes and crap, and yet a seed managed to come in here and just land, you know? I'm not saying it was impossible or anything, it's just, I find that just funny to think about. That, like, the seeds really did get around. Erdtree really knows how to sow its seed, as it were. Yeah, I guess I'm crazy. I thought the dogs were here. They're down here. This dog just passed the Godskin Duo area. Yeah, that might be a better look then. Yeah, I remember there's like 1 or 2 beastmen and then like a bunch of the actual doggies just like chowing down maybe. Oh god. Me trying to remember where the hell I'm going. Okay. There we go. Ah, there we go. Perfect. Same thing. Not the angle I ever expected to be taking of a dog, but you know. Needs must, as they say. Just want to get a shot. I enjoy the blue in this stuff, by the way. Uh-huh. Oh, the Bengals. We wonder if they're beastmen who fully regress into being animals. I don't think so. I think the idea is more so these are just how they style their dogs, because the dogs are similar to them, so they dress them up similar to them too, you know. I think it's more like how you take, like, you know, I think it's the same way with how, you know, little girls, they'll take their dolls and they'll play dress up. I think it's the same thing they do with their pets. I guess technically owners do that to their pets too, like for Halloween and stuff, like they make them wear a costume. I think that's though the idea though, is that, you know, this is just for them a kind of cultural play thing. Like, oh hey, we're gonna have Fido, you know, look, he's gonna have like all these bangles and stuff. See, now he looks just like you, Papa. No, that type of thing. Yeah, so I wonder with the jewelry if the dogs are also sentient or if the beastmen just respect fellow beasts. I think it's the latter. I think based on the way that the dogs behave, we don't like see any dogs casting incantations or something like that, right? Like, I think it's just a matter of, you have the beastmen, they recognize they were once beasts, but they are enlightened and stuff, and so they just they follow the Pluto rule. It's like, well, if it's stupider than I am, it's totally free real estate for pet ownership. They are the goofies in this relationship, and the dogs are the Plutos. Yeah, there is this idea though that the beastmen have what's the word, that there's like this bestial nature to them, right? So there's this struggle of, like, you know, not regressing to pure beastly irrationality, as it were, right? To maintain that civility befitting their intelligence as beasts, right? Like this guy's like, I will be the monk. I will be the enlightened monk. I will not be a beast. I am a beastman. Well, should be burning up all this death root, my friend. Yeah, you know, that's a question. Could you just burn up death root, or is it like too resilient or something, right? I mean, we have trees that you can't just burn, so if the Erd tree is something you need special fire for, maybe it's the same for death root. That'd be an interesting idea to explore. Blackie is Mickey Mouse. Yeah, you know what? That's not a bad way to put it. Blackie is Mickey. Now every time I look at that tornado, I'm gonna be like, oh, hey, oh no. Oh. Oh. Death root being burned might just send out toxic fumes. I mean, maybe, who knows? Who knows what the justification would be? I haven't really thought about it, so I don't know if there would be a major problem or not. Like, does it even come up in an area where it's like, oh no, yeah, that we should be? Because I don't think we have anyone that, like, obviously there's the idea to get rid of death root, like talking about it in abstract, but I don't know if we have any examples of people who actually, like, you know, oh yeah, I go around and I'm supposed to exterminate like all the death root. Like, they typically just are very like, yeah, we root out death root and stuff like that, kill those who live in death, blah blah blah. Anyway, I think we're gonna end it here. I think I've gotten all the stuff that I wanted to check out and stuff, and I think it's pretty much clarified everything I thought I knew and what I needed to know and stuff like that. So I think we're gonna move on with there. This was kind of cool and stuff like that. I might do streams again this hour or not. It depends, because, you know, I'm gonna be out a little bit, so we'll just have to see how that plays. If I'm lucky, I'll be able to like stream like closer to 3 or something, but we'll see. I may be out for a while. Weird that we don't see any talking beastmen in game outside Malekith, if you count him. I mean, I'm not too surprised, because like the beastmen are kind of supposed to be like the past, and like they're their own little faction or whatever, so I'm not surprised they keep them as mostly just enemies. And they kind of use Malekith as like a proxy, because he's technically a beast priest of sort, right? Like, he's kind of like retreated into being like the monk type, but I don't think they wanted to have you explore being part of the beastman slash dragon faction directly. I think that's why the DLC is able to cheat, right? And you're able to be like, you know, you're kind of like part, like they're like the castaways that are focused on Bale or what have you, right? So like it's kind of like separated into its own thing. I feel like that's probably the justification. But anyway, enough about that. See you all